Charlie Brock with Chattanooga Quantum Collaborative. Really excited for this panel. Obviously, collaboration has been a key theme over the last several days, so we're going to talk about regional collaboration. My guess is, I see a lot of familiar faces, or some familiar faces out here. A number of you are probably already collaborating with some of the folks up here, and hopefully we're going to explore some of those collaborations and talk more about other opportunities to do so. We've got a great group of panelists, and Chattanooga Quantum Collaborative, our mission statement is really about leveraging quantum assets and mobilizing partnerships for the benefit of our community in Chattanooga, our businesses, our people, our communities in our region, really. So this is right up our alley of what we're trying to do. So it's a great pleasure to be joined by these four folks, and I guess as evidence of collaboration, I've known Jim Ingraham for many years because we've worked together in different initiatives in Chattanooga. But these other three gentlemen I didn't know a year ago at QWC. So now we're working together in various capacities, and that's the beautiful thing about what we're all trying to do here in our early nascent technology and field. So it's really exciting. And I will start and introduce Shaun Gleason with Oak Ridge National Lab and see if I get this title correct. Shaun, oh, there we go. Okay, well, I'm going to try it without reading. The Director of the Science and Security Integration Initiative. Y'all can tell me if I got that right or not. And importantly for Chattanooga, he is our liaison from Oak Ridge National Lab, which we do not take. Having a national lab in Tennessee, in Southeast Tennessee, is an incredible asset that we do not take for granted. And having Shaun as our liaison working with us in Chattanooga with EPB, with CQC, and the rest of us is really a great blessing for us in Chattanooga. So thank you. Jim Ingraham, longtime friend and collaborator, VP of Strategic Research at EPB. And I got to tell you, the Electric Power Board, without EPB, there's a number of folks from EPB here, we certainly wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here in this room today. What they have done, continue to do for Chattanooga, for our region, as an example for other utilities throughout the country is incredible. They're really the most progressive utility in the country. If you want to get an idea of that culture, if you go to their website and you go to About Us page, it says, "We start with yes." And that is absolutely the way they operate. And as a result of that, they've been serving this community, our community, for 85 years almost. And we've got the most advanced energy management and distribution system in the country. And we also have the fastest internet in the country. And that was afforded to us really through EPB's investment in a community-wide fiber optic infrastructure. So we had a gig internet throughout the community starting 14 years ago, and now it's up to 25 gig. So it's been an incredible boon for our community, for businesses, attraction for startups, entrepreneurs, investors, and everything. So thank you, Jim, and everything y'all do. Shaun Gleason, who's become a friend over the last 6 months, which has been terrific. Excuse me, how about let's go this way? Let's go over this way. He's become a friend too. But Joe Queenan, South Carolina Quantum. And Joe's got an exciting announcement he's going to make today. We've been talking over the last 6 months about collaboration. He certainly embodies that in everything he does and how he goes about his business leading South Carolina's quantum efforts. So again, we have an announcement from Joe a little bit into the panel here. And then finally, but last but certainly not least, Piotr Kulczakowicz. Yes. Kulczakowicz. Okay, got it.
Passing all is proposed.
You can call him Peter too. He will answer to that. But Piotr and I have been talking really for about 8 or 9 months about some of the things that they're doing at Quantum Startup Foundry and what we're trying to do in Chattanooga and with our Entrepreneur Center there at CoLab, who's represented by Angela here today, and continue to explore opportunities there. So again, it's a great pleasure to be with you guys today and talk about collaboration. And so let's start off the discussion, really talk about, again, you're collaborating with some of these folks here. There's others who may want to collaborate with you. As you think about collaboration, as you're looking at partnerships, talk about some of the assets that you bring to the table, and then also some of the gaps or needs that you might be looking for in a partnership. And Shaun, can we start with you on that?
Sure. Thank you, Charlie. At a place like Oak Ridge National Lab, we can brag about some pretty significant things we have there in terms of depth of expertise across almost any scientific area you could think of. Relevant to this conference, we have a 60-plus person quantum information sciences research organization. About 13 years ago, when I first started running that organization, it was like 6 people. So it's increased by tenfold over the last little more than a decade. But we have deep scientific expertise, and then we have amazing facilities, experimental facilities, laboratories, quantum laboratories. We have a research quantum network that has over 300 kilometers of fiber. We just finished a new building called the Translational Research Center, where we have a whole new suite of quantum laboratories that we're about to move into. So between facilities and deep subject matter expertise, equipment and things like that, we can do some very groundbreaking research. The gaps that we have, we need to fill with partnerships. And the gaps are is we can build things in the laboratory that work very well, but they may be fragile. And quantum is fragile by nature. But generally speaking, when you build things in a lab, they can be fragile, not resilient to various conditions. And so we need partners that are leaning in, that are willing to try these crazy new technologies, and quantum is one of those. And so folks like Chattanooga is a great place because we have multiple partners there that we work with, including EPB and UT Chattanooga. We need people, so we need to work with universities. We can bring them and train them, but we're trying to fill our employment pipeline. So that's another gap we have as a talent workforce gap. So the ability to transition technology to partners and workforce are two of the gaps, I would say, where we really rely on partnerships to fill them.
Great, thank you. Just pass it down.
So I'm glad Charlie messed up first on the order, because some of my colleagues said, Jim, good luck. Hope everything goes well before I came up here. I do this all the time. I'm fine. I'm feeling a little bit like I'm about to take a calculus midterm again 40 years ago. But it's all good. What does EPB bring to this quantum space? 25 years ago, we had a culture I call penny pencil. So what that meant is everybody wrote with a number 2 pencil. And when that pencil got shorter, we had a very nice lady you took it to, and she measured it. And if it met the standard, she'd give you another one. And if not, you would go back and she'd say, you can do some more writing with that pencil. So here's the point of that story. Our message to our employees, our message to our community, our message to our customers was that we are getting every ounce of value out of every penny we collect from you, and don't expect any more service than that. And 25 years ago, we decided to change that culture. Today, like Charlie said, we have an electric distribution system, covers 600 square miles. It is operated by 22 integrated software platforms, which is unique in the energy sector. There are over 1,200 automated switches on all 125 of our circuits in our electric service territory. Each one of our customers has an automated meter, and we're in the process of getting ready to deploy the 6th generation of those meters. And we now have 16 years of metadata, weather, system status, waveforms from automated switches, and that meter data, which we collect every 15 minutes. We have so much data that our SCADA system is only capable of recording that data in the archive every 2 seconds. And we're losing over 1 trillion data points a year because our SCADA system is not fast enough to be able to collect the data, to allow us to improve service with it. So, we have the most advanced fiber optic communications you'll find anywhere in the world, like Charlie said. We just finished a $70 million upgrade to the fiber optic network. We have 25 gig symmetrical internet anywhere. One of my colleagues was saying at lunch yesterday, I miss our internet at home. I do too. And that's because at our convention center, we've got 25 gig internet, and believe me, it's faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's Chattanooga. So, our brand is energy, connectivity, and community. What sets us apart? Advanced state-of-the-art technology and platinum customer service. Like Charlie said, if you got a problem at your house with your internet, we'll come out to your house at 3 o'clock in the morning and fix it for you if you want us to. Advanced technology, this is why we're in quantum. Our 25 gig internet will see us through the next 10 years. In the next decade, we're going to be ready to build a quantum internet in Chattanooga. That's why we built the quantum internet that we have today. We're working closely with companies like IonQ and Qubitekk and the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. We're going to integrate quantum computing, high performance computing into that architecture. We're going to put that metadata we have to work to solve the capacity problems that we have in the energy business in our country today. Because our technology is going to have to be part of the answer. That's kind of what we bring to the table.
That's great. Thank you, Jim. All right, Joe.
I'm Joe. SC Quantum, our mission is to really help build the talent pipeline that we need and deserve in the Southeast. So our greatest asset, I think, is our people. South Carolina has consistently been able to build things that make a difference in our economy. And so our state legislature directed $15 million to us to focus on 3 areas: workforce development, the settling of talent technology, entrepreneurship, if you will, and then these youth studies. And that's our lane, and we're doing a pretty good job. And we're pleased to partner with IonQ and Qubitekk and a lot of these others. But at the end of the day, I think what our role in this is to build that talent so that when the puck meets the stick in a couple of years and all this stuff is ready for prime time, we're still at the table.
So I start with, when you look at the headlines on quantum, it almost feels like there's like this vile competition going on between different hubs, right? Those guys investing $500 million, and another set of guys is investing, and trashing the other hub. Anyway, I think we are all in this together. At this stage, collaboration is paramount. I think we can and we should collaborate on issues of national priority, essentially. And that's why we have all those conversations. So talking about specific assets that Maryland and the Foundry has and could contribute to those collaborations, I start at the high level. If you look at our region, and President Pines of University of Maryland showed this on the map, we have probably the highest concentration in the world of institutions, organizations working on all aspects of quantum and both dual use, whether it's for betterment of humanity or for defense purposes. Same goes for concentration of talent, people working on those challenges. That's on a regional level. And UMD is at the heart of it, and I'm gonna repeat what President Pines said about academic side of things on quantum, and collaborations that we have with different institutes such as NSA or NIST and so on and so forth. But I want to also emphasize that University of Maryland is one of the largest and the most robust schools for computer sciences, right? And ultimately it will be about software development, utilizing those quantum machines for better outcomes. We are highly ranked on the entrepreneurship level, right? President Pines mentioned collaboration with IonQ. This is one of the greatest assets we have in our immediate region in College Park in Prince George's County. And most importantly, we have QLab, which is this test bed with access to the bestest and latest from IonQ. For example, startups participating in QSF have privileged access through QLab to that hardware, right? So there is a pool of talent. There is not just talent of quantum scientists, but also computer scientists, business school. People from business school call us and ask us, hey, how I can get involved in this quantum stuff. And then getting to the level of the Foundry, I like to think about myself as a connecting point to all this richness of assets we have in the region. If you don't know who to call in Maryland to maybe create some of those collaborations, call me, please. And I will also add that we are absolutely open to collaborations. I think, you know, I was lucky to visit the Quebec ecosystem. I haven't been to Chattanooga yet. I'm working on it, promise. Or South Carolina, but Joe visited us a couple of years ago, and we shared what we knew. What we bring to the table is our experience, so others don't have to repeat our mistakes, and so on and so forth. So again, call me if you need to connect to our ecosystem to create value for our national quantum ecosystem.
Yeah, that's great. And Piotr, we'll just keep it with you for just a second. Well, and again, the great news, you've got tremendous assets represented here across this group, and they're all open for business. And they've said that, and they want to do work, they want to collaborate. That's a great opportunity. And that will be what helps propel this industry forward in a way that that can happen and accelerate that. Piotr, talk about, obviously you mentioned IonQ and a great success story out of y'all's facility and your work there, but also talk about a success story or case study, if you will, around regional collaboration that you've been involved with from QLab or Quantum Startup Foundry.
So I mentioned QLab, obviously. So I think I brought 5 or 6 startups to do work on IonQ hardware through QLab. But I'll give another example, and I didn't mention another asset that Maryland brings is we have really strong support for entrepreneurial activities. We have a number of programs. Most of those programs you actually have to be somewhat in Maryland, so like you could have an address with us at Quantum Startup Foundry. But 3 of our startups in our network, they benefit from Maryland industrial partnerships. It's a grant program from the state. A professor at the university is doing R&D work for the company, and 3 of our startups are benefiting from it. That's one example. Another example is our collaboration with George Mason, on a regional level. Jumping back to Maryland, one of our startups received Build Our Future grant. That's a new program in Maryland to build a lab space and a characterization facility for devices that they are developing. Just a few examples.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, if you'd go to the next slide. All right, Joe, we're going to give you, Joe's got, and some of you may have seen an exciting announcement today as we look at a case study and success story, and really this is just starting, but Joe, talk us through this, if you will.
Thanks, Charlie. Really proud of this. This conversation actually started a couple of years ago. And the idea was, in the Southeast, we have every reason to be at the table. Between Oak Ridge and Savannah River, with the deep, deep research that we have going on, great universities like Duke, UT Chattanooga, NC State, others, we really have everything we need in the Southeast to be a legitimate competitive hub. We have an awful lot of talent that wants to live there. We've got beaches, we've got mountains. It's a lot more fun to live in the Southeast. And so over the last couple of years, we have had conversations with people that are employing a lot of people. And again, going back to that Gretzky analogy, puck and stick, the conversations we've been having with these companies are, what talent do you need, when do you need them by, and how can we get everyone ready for that? And at the end of their degree, when it's at Georgia Tech or Clemson or wherever, we as a region consider it a success if they don't go to Chicago or they don't go to Boulder, but they stay in the Southeast. And I think that's a novel way of looking at it. And I'm really proud that behind each of these logos are people who have reached out their hand and said, yeah, long-term vision, we're going to commit to a couple of things. 1, collaborate. 2, just connect regularly and convene. And then 3rd rule, which I'm told I'm not allowed to say, is the no asshole rule. And it's basically, look, we're at the beginning of a very long and complicated process. We've got to be able to look each other in the eye, know we've got each other's back as we build this thing out. It's not about competing with each other. It's about keeping our talent in the region and helping these next generation of entrepreneurs, give them the unfair competitive advantage that they deserve to build their business and create more jobs in the Southeast. These companies, every single one of them, Charlie included, especially right out of the gates, Charlie said yes, and then what's involved. That's what it's going to take, and all these companies, I would encourage you to look into. They're all doing something really, really cool. And Piotr, very graciously, when we started talking about this, reminded us that we're already doing great things with the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast. We're collaborating already. We had a couple of startup entrepreneurs that went up there, and Piotr was gracious enough to host them, and that's That's the way we need to look at this. This is a national priority. We need to think about these things regionally, but at the same time, just step back and realize that we as a nation have got to get our act together. We can't be shooting ourselves in the head.
That's terrific. Let's give a hand to Joe for leading this effort, really. That is super exciting. We're glad to be part of it, and we're excited to see how this goes. And I love the culture that you're already creating with the 3 Cs. It's fantastic. Jim, talk about EPB is so collaborative, and really some of the regional infrastructure collaborations that EPB is leading in our region. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Let me just start. It's released to the media today that researchers from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory are in Chattanooga on the EPB Quantum Network doing some testing that they have done on the network at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And they're now supplementing that on our network, which is on a commercial network. And we're very proud to be working with some of the top physicists at Oak Ridge on that research today this week in Chattanooga. So our connection up to the Oak Ridge National Laboratory is a relationship we've had now for over 10 years. We've collaborated on over 90 different research projects, mainly in energy, but that is how we got into quantum. That's how we got introduced to Cubatech out in San Diego. That's how we formed a partnership with them to begin to build our EPB quantum network. So there is a connection up to the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. We have connections with research faculty at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. We have done collaborative projects with researchers at Vanderbilt University in Nashville. Of course, we collaborate with the startup community in Tennessee, all across the state of Tennessee, in cooperation with CoLab, and that works its way over into Georgia and North Carolina and into Alabama. We have connections to the Marshall Space Flight Center and the Redstone Arsenal, and now Space Command in Huntsville, Alabama. So it is very much a web, a network of relationships very similar to what we see here, and this is just another evolution of it into the quantum space. It's a great thing to see.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Shaun, again, y'all are collaborating with so many folks across the region, across the country. Will you speak to some of those success stories?
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Jim, for mentioning the work we're doing. This week, it's an active polarization compensation technique, which in layman's terms allows you to do quantum communication more robustly and resiliently on a network that has sources of noise that you might not have in a laboratory environment. So it's a great opportunity for us to move the needle there in the quantum communications and quantum networking space. I'll mention 2 other brief things. One thing we like to do as a national lab is provide our scientists for educational opportunities, mentorship, guidance, because we're trying to grow that next generation of quantum scientists. So Queenan reached out to me, and he's got some educational programs and things going on, and we have loaned some of our quantum scientists to that effort so that they can mentor some of these young people and hopefully grow up that next generation. So that's an example there. And then the other one I'll give briefly is we work closely with the University of Tennessee in Chattanooga as well. And the chancellor last night made an announcement about approval for a position called a governor's chair. So a governor's chair is an academic position that sits between or is assigned to both Oak Ridge National Laboratory and a university. It's a very prestigious position. We got one approved for quantum science. So we will be searching for a governor's chair. So that's a great collaboration there where we'll have this resource that will help be another bridge for science and technology between Oak Ridge, UTC, UT Chattanooga, and by extension, the region of Chattanooga, et cetera. And then we're also having many conversations with other universities across the state, as some of the other folks on this panel would talk about, such as Tennessee Tech, for example. And we have a vision to create a regional quantum network. We'd like to connect our research quantum network to the commercial quantum network at EPB, connect that to a research quantum network at Tennessee Tech, and expand into the Southeast region and South Carolina. So we've got this big vision to create this regional quantum network, because I think regional challenges are the way to tackle these. And I think we can go get more government funding and support from the Department of Energy and other agencies to help build out this regional network.
Very exciting. Okay, we've got 5 minutes, so I'm open this up, and I'll hand the microphone. Y'all can have two to pass around. What are some of the barriers and challenges with regional collaboration? Either some that you've already encountered, and if you have, how you maybe work through those, or how you propose to work through those going forward. Anybody kind of speak to that?
Well, I think one barrier to cooperation is infrastructure. So we know from McKinsey, artificial intelligence is already an $8 trillion market space globally. Quantum is predicted to be a $2 trillion market space as we enter the next decade. After what I've kind of learned at QWC this year, I won't be surprised if that doesn't happen much faster. So right now, let's call it a $10 trillion market opportunity. But if you're the average American and you want to get involved in this quantum business, and you're not a Oak Ridge National Laboratory scientist, a Research One University scientist, you're trying to learn it and apply it in the real world without access to it, without access to the infrastructure, without access to the computing, without access to the networks, without the flexibility to apply your data to it, to figure out what the technology can do for us today, and then what is the promise of tomorrow. We all need access to the infrastructure, and we're working very hard to build that for our community and our region in Chattanooga right now.
I can think of a couple of barriers, right? Number one is a lot of development around various hubs in quantum have to do with state money, right? And state money often comes with limitations on how the money can be used. And there could be different limitations imposed. For example, the company has to be 51% present in the state. That's not the case of Maryland, by the way. What does it mean today? I mean, everybody is like, I talked to a number of people from INQ as an example, and one is in South Florida, another one is on the West Coast, and so on. So on the one hand, the state puts the money on the table, but at the same time, the state puts limitations on how the money can be used. And in the end of the day, the company has to do what's right for them, right? I was happy to send two of the startups I was interacting with and hoping to attract them to Maryland, but they got accepted into Duality. Awesome. They get the money, right? So that's one limitation. The second limitation is for collaborations is what Michael Bogo from McKinsey was talking about earlier today, which is like talent shortage. So we can imagine there will be a little bit of infight going on. That's why it's important that Joe and UMD, we're working together on expanding the talent pool so there is less fight for the talent, right? It could be limitations for regional, but it could be also an opportunity to collaborate, right? So that would be number two. I think, you were talking about access to infrastructure. Another way to think about the barriers is opportunity to access by underrepresented populations, right? How we encourage people into STEM and so on. That's why QSF is partnering with Qubit, and you are collaborating with QBrate, for example, to open those educational and access opportunities for all populations, for all citizens.
I just have one
real quick. We've got
with
1
this
minute.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
This is a 20-year journey that resets itself every morning. We've got to play the cards in our hands, not the ones we want. We've got to be realistic about where all this stuff is. The more we hype this stuff up, the less our chances of success are. So all these folks that are part of this understand we're in the early days of this. There will be some wins, there will be some losses, but we've got to keep focused on the long term. If we want to keep these young people interested in this field and motivated in this field, we need to set these expectations.
And I'll just finish up by saying I think communication and coordination of efforts across our region are extremely important. I'm always amazed when I talk to different organizations within the state that people are getting money from various sources to do quantum science and technology development. Sometimes it's computing, networking, sensing. And if we communicate and coordinate, and that's what I like about what Joe is announcing here, is that we can align our resources, we can align our efforts, and we can accomplish much more than we could if we worked in these silos because of the way the things are structured. So communication and coordination.
Fantastic. And with that, let's give it up for our panelists here. Thank you all.